clearing the cache.
Oh,
out.
God,
The
I
other
love it.
things-
Brian all said it was nice and warm in here. I'm like,
Oh,
what are you
it's
talking
cozy.
about? I'm still cold.
I like it.
I'm gonna have to put my coat on.
Like it. Like it. Oh, now we are three. I like that.
Like, no, he doesn't do bathroom breaks.
You don't get bathroom breaks. You should know better.
Okay. At least we'll know where you are.
See, it's snowing, they stopped. Today it snowed almost all damn.
No, we're not waiting for you,
Sorry.
Dr. Janestri. Use that anytime
Oh,
I
my
can.
goodness. Yeah.
Thank you for being so patient with us out there. Next, we have the approval of the agenda. Could I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Josh is an aye. Thank you. Next is our minutes of the previous meeting. Could I have a motion to accept those minutes?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Josh. Next is communications. Did anyone receive any communications? Josh, anything?
Nope.
Nope. Okay, thank you. That takes us to our first open session. Before I start reading, does anyone have any takers for open session? Okay, good. Let's move on. Next is unfinished. No, not yet. You come at another. You're part of our agenda. Next is unfinished business. We have none, and that takes us to the superintendent report by Dr. Janestri.
Oh, thank you. Jeez. Still getting used to it. So thank you for that. And we do have some guests here with us tonight. Firefighter Bettino is here. He wrote us a while back about talking about the tax exemption for volunteer firefighters and ambulance personnel, and asked for some time for the board tonight. So we have him on the agenda and would welcome you to.
We're gonna start with Rob Abrams. He's president of the Snyder Fire Department.
Awesome. Great. Thank you.
Stand up here. Well, thank you guys for your time tonight. As mentioned, my name's Rob Abrams. I'm president of the Snyder Fire Department. I'm here with John and Mr. Lunetta here as well to talk to you guys about the 10% exemption. As you guys are probably aware, town of Amherst is fully staffed from a fire department standpoint of 10 volunteer, 100% volunteer fire departments. These departments are made up of many members of your community. Me being in Snyder, our fire department is staffed by many people that live in the Sweet Home School Districts, parents of students that are in the Sweet Home School District. And, you know, this volunteer fire service has really been a staple in the community for well over 100 years for many of our departments. Our departments are really comprised of many different members that hold full-time jobs, have families, are parents, juggling many different responsibilities, but yet take time out of our day to just volunteer and serve our community, help protect the children's, adults, you know, the pass-throughs of our departments, and really help provide this protection for the entire town of Amherst. We answer in the town of Amherst over 30,000 calls annually combined, all on volunteer efforts. And because of this, you know, in the town of Amherst, if we were to go to at least a combination, so partially paid fire departments, some volunteers that come in, we're saving the taxpayers in the town of Amherst over $50 million a year by these volunteer services. What's making it hard for us to continue this volunteer service and to keep the fire taxes low, to keep the town taxes low, is really the donation of all of this time. And with this time that we are donating, you know, us residents are obviously taking time out of our lives, away from our jobs, away from our families, as well as spending a lot of personal money out of our own pockets for transportation, fuel, sometimes parts of uniforms or gear that we need to help provide a lot of these services. And we take these expenses on personally because we really feel that we need to be here to serve the community in a time of need. The goal of this tax relief that Governor Hochul has passed back in December is really to help provide us some relief, help keep housing affordable for our volunteers, which many of our volunteers leave our fire service because they can't afford houses in the districts, the communities that we serve. And it is really important for our fast response times that we have residents spread all over the town of Amherst that are responding from their homes, leaving their lunch breaks, getting up from dinner or holidays to go out and rush to answer those alarms. With this 10% tax break that these volunteers would receive, it helps offset some of those costs to help hopefully keep these volunteers living in your community so we can be right there and respond. In your schools, I'm sure your fire departments have been here time and time again to respond to things. Those fast responses really require us to be residents. They need us to live close. They need us for the neighbor down around the corner to quickly respond when you have an emergency. Without us being able to stay within these districts and within the town of Amherst to live and to afford this housing, it could cause problems with us being able to respond as timely because we don't have those neighborhood residents anymore. This 10% tax break really helps us stay in your area, stay close, and provide that same fast response that we always have. And with this, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Lunetta to talk a little bit more about the impact on the community.
Hey, thanks for having us here. I'm kind of pitching in for my president, but I'm really honored to be here. I'm also here to represent Amherst Fire Council, which is a group that we belong to that has all the fire companies in Amherst, and I'm going to report back to them on this. But I'm Sam Lunetta. I graduated from this school in 1969. So I've been a volunteer firefighter since I was a sophomore in 67 when I started. So you do the math, you're all very smart. Okay. I'm still active, like second and third in points for responding as an active firefighter. And yes, I am somewhat limited to what I can do with a lot of EMS calls, which that's one of the things I want to say is the age of the firefighters today. I could tell you, just speaking with North Bailey and seeing all my other, colleagues in the fire companies, it's a lot of us retired people that are responding throughout the day to get to these calls. And we're getting to that point where if we don't get more and have an incentive for younger people and others of all ages actually to join, to be able to respond, it's a problem. You got to look at the age that's happening, and the calls for service are starting to really jump. North Bailey is a very small district, one of the small districts, and yet we're getting close to 500 calls a year, which may not sound like a lot, but throw in our meetings, throw in our every week we do drills, all the other special details we do. It's more than 500 times we go there. Throw into Eggertsville, Gettsville, all these companies that are just constantly going with over 1,000 calls a year, saving the taxpayers a lot of money. And it could be, and I'm sure, look around. Have you ever had to call the fire department, 911, to go to the hospital or something? Be blessed. We're very good response times, but yet we need to have that. Again, like I said, we have the growth in the town, and like our district in North Bailey, you're going to put a Costco in there. They have to redo that whole roadway, and our calls, we know they're going to go up. And we have a rapid transit that now I understand is definitely going to be going down Maple Road. That splits our districts, Eggertsville and North Bailey's. Those calls, so we're going to have more people. We have Consumer Square over on the boulevard. All the growth of the town is really, becoming immense. So we really need to look at the incentives. How do we keep people? If you don't know, I was retired from Buffalo State University now. I used to go to Buffalo State College. As a university police officer, I was a lieutenant. And my big thing was, community policing and reaching out to the community. And we had a lot of fire alarms and everything. So we did a lot of outreach and try and get people to be involved and understand what's needed to keep your community safe. And that's what we're asking you. Not only keeps it safe, but it keeps those new possible firefighters in the job. And somebody has to do it. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having us here tonight. My name is John Bettino. I'm a class of 96 here at Sweet Home. Tremendously fortunate to be a Sweet Home graduate and the opportunities that the school district has provided as far as education. Like Sam, I joined the Eggertsville Hose Company in the volunteer fire service when I was a sophomore here. So I may or may not have left during open periods to go to calls at the time, but that's what we do. We were there to help people in their time of need. And that included being a junior firefighter here in school and sitting with some of the North Bailey firefighters at study hall. And this was a cafeteria when I went here. So it was easy to find the room tonight. But definitely when we talk about the word tax credit, and it's not really a credit per se, it's a reduction on the assessed value of the homeowner. So it's again, investing in a homeowner in the community. Just as yourselves are looking to invest in the community, into your school district by having long-term invested individuals in your community that you can work on educating and staying here and continuing to develop the wholesomeness of this area. We look to do the same in a lot of our fire districts, as Sam and Rob had mentioned, to have quick response, to have professional volunteers that are able to respond at a moment's notice. Many of us are able to develop both with our education and our fire service education, sometimes into public service careers. That's why you see a lot of volunteer firefighters that are also working in public service. As you are very familiar with in your positions on the board, there's nothing more fulfilling in life than serving the people. And it's why a lot of us do what we do as a volunteer. It's because the fulfillment factor, as Sam had mentioned as well, the volume of calls is tremendously high. At Eggertsville, we're over 1,100 calls a year. Our EMS calls, we send some of the minor natured ones to the ambulance only, where we answer about 700 or 800 EMS alone. Where we have fires that most of our departments actually went to yesterday over at UB. They had a significant fire in a res hall, causing some damage and a lot of smoke in the building, where they had to evacuate. And your fire department for the school at Gettsville was there to make a quick attack and quick knockdown on the fire. So when we mentioned about the tax credit, again, it takes 10% off the assessed value of a home for an individual's primary home. And the effects of the legislation that was put in place, as you know, legislation is very tough to get passed, and it can be very time consuming, many, many years to put something through, even that doesn't have any impact to it. By having this legislation passed, it brings Western New York and Erie County on board with the rest of the state. 13 other counties in the state had this legislation already currently, where their local delegations would advocate in Albany to have these passed. That's why having this benefit, this opportunity here in Erie County and Western New York is so essential. It's not a large reduction in the firefighters' assessed value, being 10%. But the true bonus to it would be in the cumulative factor, which is why we're going to the school districts. We're going to the town and the villages. You guys are our second last stop on the train. We've had tremendous support. Waynesville School District approved, Amherst we've worked with as well. And Thursday, Erie County as unanimous nomination to support the legislation as well. So looking forward to the opportunity, not just for the tax benefit and the tax law to be supported, but for an ongoing relationship with the school district where we can be partners in the community as well. Thank you. Any questions?
Okay, actually, I'm sorry if I looked like I was looking away. I was actually reading something on the FASD website while you guys were talking about some of this. And it doesn't give me all the details of the law. I mean, from our point of view, is it just, we just have to pass it offering you the 10% exemption? We don't have to
So
come
I,
up with.
after tonight's meeting, I'll have a follow-up email to the board that will include a sample resolution and instructions for public hearing. All of the other legislative bodies have held a public hearing and then immediately had a vote for that. And what happens to that, and I probably should have counted on this as well, because you may get questions maybe from taxpayers or from other stakeholders. There is no change in the tax levy to both the school district's budget and to the community as far as property taxes, if you will. However, this is the only tax deduction or reduction, if you will, that someone can take advantage of. Not all of us can become veterans or become senior citizens at the drop of a hat, but anybody in the community typically can be a volunteer firefighter. So if someone is looking for a little bit of an extra lift with their tax bills, that's an opportunity to recruit and then, like we said, to retain. So it's the public hearing followed up by a resolution or a vote of support or to go with there. And then the town does all the work when they do the assessment and the final tax bill.
You're gonna send that to us?
Yep,
then, so
send it-
we'll Have it.
You guys will have the resolution sample as well as some bodies of law, as well as all of the municipalities and what process they went through to consider it.
It sounds close to what we did for the veterans exemption 7, 8 years ago, whatever.
Yeah,
I just to piggyback off of Officer Patino, from Williamsville perspective, the school district approved it in March. So there's, and John's right, there's a sample resolution that they had that very clearly delineates the exemption. And then once there's a public hearing and then there's a vote. Once that's passed, then we submit that to Erie County, who does the tax bills. And then if the individual firefighter or ambulance worker, because it's both, would then have to fill out an application at their respective towns. It would either be the town of Amherst or the town of Tonawanda to receive the exemption.
I just said that was gonna be my next question, because even obviously,
Yeah.
Peter and I are Tonawanda.
yeah, we
So
I've talked informally with some of the folks on the other side of the boulevard.
Yeah.
And we're definitely, and I've given them all of our toolkits that we're using as far as resources. And once we're able to complete this operation or this advocating, we're going to definitely reach out to some of our partners. But I can tell you that Amherst and it will probably be the first ones that are 100% complete as far as having that support. And again, that's to draw people to this area and keep them here.
And we don't have to deal with anything about rules like you have to have so many years in.
The
or
town,
that's
no,
not
the
our problem.
town has that in the state real estate law. So there's some other things that come into play too. If the person is not a property owner, there's a $200 tax credit they get on their state income tax. So you can't take advantage of both of those at the same time. So the state's looking at some other opportunities that as well. I can tell you from my primary job, I work for New York State Office of Fire Prevention and Control. I do inspections of many of the homes in the community where individuals with disabilities live. And again, I focus all of that on my education here that started that groundwork. I can tell you that there's a task force for recruitment and retention of firefighters statewide. And initiatives like this to be building blocks, along with hopefully bringing some education to the schools and to some of the trade schools as well, to bring volunteer firefighters to the table and recruit them is going to be a key part. That's why I say this relationship is just hopefully beginning.
Cool. My last question is, it's just pure 10%, right?
It's 10%. There is a different adjustments there, but everyone's been kind of going with the 10%.
Okay, yeah, just because the veterans one, they came back with like 8 different categories. It
Yeah,
got
no,
really
this is
different.
just a 10%.
Okay, thank you. That makes
you.
life so much easier.
May I ask a
Yes,
question?
go ahead.
So just in the resolution that you have, that at least Williamsville, I'm using Williamsville as a
Yep.
basis, right? So it's a firefighter and ambulance worker with a minimum of 2 years of applicable service. So what puts a firefighter or an ambulance worker in good standing where they would gain a year of service?
It's according to each department in their jurisdiction, it's the authority having jurisdiction. So it's, I would say, equivalent to we would have in the school, what their grades would be and whether that's pass or fail based on what criteria they have to meet to benchmark for their department. At Eggertsville, it's 15% of calls. If you're over 15 years, it's 10% of the calls, 12 drills and trainings, so many meetings per year, OSHA training and compliance, a lot of criteria puts into place. But there's a minimum threshold that all of the departments in the town of Amherst and Tonawanda maintain. And if they're an active firefighter or a contributing firefighter, they're by all means meeting that requirement. The law also has, after 20 years of service, it's a lifetime of service. And then there's some other parameters in there if the firefighter dies in line of duty and other things like that, for things to come to the table. But it definitely is up to the department, just like they do for the length of service awards program, which is similar to a very small retirement program that was started in the early 90s. And again, that's not able to take advantage of because 20-year-olds aren't looking for retirement, you know? So those criteria are all put into play when they're evaluating that person's that volunteer career.
So there are significant benchmarks that they have to hit to
So
get
if you
that.
have, say a fire, and I don't know if this is, but maybe only is working or volunteering 10 hours versus somebody that can do 30 hours, would everybody just get the same?
It's so at the end of the year, whichever the calendar year is for all of our departments. They honor the top responders and the bottom responders kind of there's criteria there. If someone doesn't meet their benchmarks in our department, it's a warning, it's a suspension, there's discipline process, a chain of action that's taken there. And you take into account family, work and things like that. And we look at it like you volunteer to join, but after that, it takes commitment to stay within the organization. And just like with what you guys are doing here tonight, it's a matter of finding that role, the ability to fit into your day-to-day life and how you can do that. That is really key, because we've had firefighters that last for 2 years and answer 180% of the calls. It's really the ones like Sam that is here for 50 years and it's a marathon. And you want to have that longevity to it, to have someone that's competent in what they do and really qualified at it.
Back to your question.
You want the podium?
Sorry. In Snyder, we did a study over the last 2 years to maintain your minimum requirements in Snyder, which is 25% of about 1,100 calls, not to mention training, meetings, other things that we have to do, just response to calls. It averages out to be 288 hours. That's to do the minimum and not get kicked out of our department, 288 hours. I'm in about 540, father with 3 kids, full-time job, running a big company. It's tough. And so this isn't, you put 5 hours in, you're going to get 10%. And that doesn't equate for any of our departments. It's a significant amount of time.
Most of the folks that are giving into it, I can probably tell you that for the 3 of us, there's not a day that you're not stopping at the station as part of your normal day-to-day process. It's becoming part of your fabric of what you do. And it's really very rewarding and tremendously fortunate to be able to do this.
Officer Bettino, you mentioned a couple.
Chief.
Oh, Chief, sorry.
We have to pay for our coffee.
I will keep that in
Oh,
mind.
Mr.
Yeah.
Which is
Yes.
which is a whole nother challenge. They look out the window. Are you a fireman? Yeah, $1.65. Okay.
Yeah. Got it. Chief, you mentioned a couple thresholds in the before about 2 years of service and then
In the law, yes.
10 and the 15. Who tracks that? And do
The-
you have to
So
reapply?
the firefighter will fill out the application
Okay,
and they check off the boxes for what they're qualified for.
okay,
Just like as if you're doing your taxes, if you're filing jointly or singly. If someone's an ambulance worker
Got it.
and a firefighter, they can only take advantage of one, but if their spouses, so there's all those check boxes on the New York State real estate form,
okay.
which are full of acronyms and very simple to understand, but that's what they have.
Welcome to
So-
New York.
It's not our problem is the important point here.
Taxes, because they weren't sure if it was gonna go through or whatever.
Right.
And I brought it to the assessor's office and it was very simple, but the chief has to sign off.
Chief or president of the department.
Accountability is there and generally through the chief, you know. We do have 1 or 2 people that are taking their calls, they get called in, so there is an accountability there.
Thank you.
Good.
So as it was this year, obviously, the 10% only came to about $20 savings. So we all took the $200 standard one that's meant by the state, which is still.
Town of Amherst, there was a 10% reduction has been on the books since 1996 or 98, I believe, is when the Town of Amherst voted on it. And there was a maximum assessment reduction of $3,000, which gave the average homeowner about $8 to $10 off a year in their taxes. So everyone would take advantage of the income tax instead. That's why only 315 of the 900 plus firefighters in the town were signed up for the program.
How does it work if you have a dependent that is also a volunteer?
It goes to the homeowner, the primary homeowner. So I would have that dependent buy a house. No, I'm just kidding. No, definitely. My son is a West Seneca firefighter. He's 20 and he doesn't own the house, so he wouldn't be able to.
So he would take the $200.
You take the income tax, yeah,
I've got something,
which they're working on. Yeah, unless they get rocking with getting a homeowner, but there's other incentives that they're looking to do. There's a ton of legislative bills that are on the table for recruitment and retention, including having the state have people that are just doing recruitment and retention for fire service. But you're talking about fishing, hunting benefits where you get tax credits for licenses and things like that. So a lot of small opportunities that just like this program where you can kind of capture everything to be able to really put a good service out there.
I just have a
At a
comment,
cost
it's nothing to do with that, but just what you just mentioned about having to buy the coffee. I have to say the best training I've ever had was an incident command system training a number of years ago where it was led by a firefighter from Niagara Falls and a police officer from Buffalo. I just watched them go back and forth for 3 days. It was
Oh my gosh.
hilarious.
Yes.
So if all went according to
Yep.
plan, are we looking at a couple months before we could get that resolution in front of people or?
Well,
like,
you
how-
could
what's the
probably, I don't know how
time?
you're, just, I can tell you grateful that you can get us on the agenda for your board meeting because that's not a common thing with many school boards. It takes 6 to 8 months to even get on the agenda. So if it's any signal on how your board processes things, I think you could probably do this at your next meeting if you wanted to. If that fit in your parameters, yeah.
You could do that, and then,
Yes.
we would send obviously the approved, if the board went this way, the approved resolution to Erie County so that this would be in place when school tax bills are cut in October.
Does a public hearing and a vote, can they occur the same night?
I don't know.
That's
that.
what most municipalities, the fire districts have done. The town of Amherst
I
did that.
think so, but I'm
They
not
had it
sure.
open for public hearing.
Yeah.
Many times, no one speaks, or they had people that spoke. We came and spoke, which we'd be happy to for that public hearing if there were any taxpayers that had questions. And then they voted immediately.
Just a quick question, for the, just as an overview, I mean, you mentioned the number of calls, but, for the public, how many firefighters are there volunteering generally in the area?
There's
Whether
about
it's-
900 in the town of Amherst.
Okay, and how many
Um,
firehouses? Because
10 departments, 6 or 5 have 2 stations because of their geographic layouts. You can probably map out, especially on the Tonawanda side where you have Brighton. Many of the fire stations in the community were built when there were rail lines and different roads and things. North Bailey was built as the north started to develop even more. So as the town and the region started to sprawl with population, fire departments adapted and changed. At Eggertsville in the early 90s, our station on Main Street near Eggert was, we were in 1908, we were founded. So we're turning 115 in a couple weeks. And we had, Main Eggert, our floor was collapsing because the fire trucks were getting so heavy in the early 90s. So they had to build this, in the 70s, they built a station by the mall when malls were a thing. And that's when we had gotten a ladder truck at the time. And we co-located, we consolidated before that was the big thing to do. And probably today they'd throw funding at you for it. But in the 90s, we've consolidated or co-located to Eggert and Bailey, which was an increased or decreased response to come from one station. So a lot of departments, Snyder as well, have continued to adapt with their layouts. And I know North Bailey has done a lot to be able to respond to their community more efficiently, more effectively. Going with our contract ambulance provider for transportation being Twin City Ambulance, they provide paramedic service. In late 80s is when paramedic service started in the town of Amherst. In the 70s, the Amherst Police actually had the ambulance service in the town. So things have adapted and changes. EMD, emergency medical dispatch, is a big innovation that came in the 90s as well, where if you call 911 today for a finger injury, you're probably not going to get all of us in the fire trucks. But if you're having chest pain, you're going to get the fire department. When I was fire chief, you get a free car and a free phone. I call it the free phone that never stops ringing and the free car that never stops driving, because it is a ton of work that you put in to have that. And it's very rewarding and valuable.
I'd just like to say thank you for all you do for keeping us safe. And I think recently that kind of came to light when one of your brothers was killed. And, and we all realized how important you are. So thank you for all you
Thank you.
do.
That, and that loops around too, where you have the volunteer and career service that work hand in hand, where one of Rob's firefighters that went on to be a career firefighter was firefighter Arno's best friend. And that was really tough for the people in that circle too, and so yeah, there's no delineation between whether you collect a paycheck or not, because the amount of risk is still the same.
Absolutely.
Our newest firefighter is Peyton Plum.
She's a sophomore and my daughter will be at the installation dinner this weekend
Nice.
with her.
I'd also just like to give a shout out to the Tonawanda EMS service.
Yes.
Last Thursday, a dear and elderly friend of mine had an emergency, and they took very, very good care of her. They had her laughing with a broken nose. And in a way, she was happy about. That wasn't upsetting.
Still, after all these years, it's still relationships and the empathy that comes to the table that helps, whether, because at the end, we're going to help somebody on a really bad day. Tonawanda's pioneered having a townwide paramedic program. Amherst is focusing towards a lot of those adaptations in the future. But really, in this region, we've really tried to work to be a step ahead of what the demand is really being. Like Sam had mentioned, the community policing or community firefighting risk reduction is really key. That's how you work with it in the school system. If you can develop those skills early, you're hopefully eliminating some needs down the line.
So thank you very much.
Thank you.
all of you.
And many of those folks are volunteers as well.
Yes.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
So
Thanks,
much.
gentlemen. Thanks for your service too. We appreciate it.
You guys don't have to stay for the meeting.
Yes,
Unless you
do.
really want to.
Unless you
It's
really want
riveting
to,
stuff.
but you put in a lot of hours.
Go on the drive just after the kids.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you, guys.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Bye, Sam. Yeah.
All right. Okay. You're gonna share your screen,
Yep.
Dr.
Yep.
Giuseppe?
So we are also in the midst of our budget season, and we'll be having our hearing tonight regarding the budget. And as soon as I get this up here, ask Mr. Feldman to present.
Okay, I always seem to have the tough act to follow, but here we are. This is welcome to budget adoption season. Hopefully, this is the fourth of our budget study sessions. We did have on the slide there, you'll see kind of the timeline there. We did have 3 budget study sessions in February 11th. Where we looked at kind of a straight program maintenance budget. And then March 14th and April 11th, we really started to kind of drill down as we got more information, both on the revenue side and on the expenditure side, and adding potentially new positions to the point now where we are proposing to you a $96,886,588 budget for the 23-24 school year. And that budget, based upon some of the conversations in the meetings up above, is tax neutral, which means that the tax levy remains the same as the current year, which is $53,321,588. So for the most part, everybody's tax bills will remain the same for the coming year. That budget does include a bus purchase, 4 large buses and 2 small ones, and all program and staffing remain the same. From the revenue side, revenue highlights, we have about $5.4 million increase in foundation and expense-driven aid. We are fully funded in basic foundation aid, which represents $4.1 million of the $5.4 million increase. The remaining $1.3 million are increases to expense-driven aids, BOCES, predominantly transportation aid because of our increased reliance on contracted transportation. We've added Our projections, $600,000 increase to sales tax projections from the current year to bring our sales tax revenue up to about $4.5 million. And then in order to make the budget tax neutral, we are recommending the use of $1.1 million in reserve usage to close the gap and make the budget tax neutral. Remember, again, for those that are hearing this the first time or might be watching on YouTube, that we did bring forward about $1.5 million from last year's budget in unassigned fund balance that we have not touched yet. So that $1.5 million could certainly be used to offset the $1.1 million in reserve usage that we plan for next year. From a staffing addition standpoint on the expense side, these are all positions that are new to the budget. We're adding a new 811 special education classroom at Willow Ridge, which translates to 1 teacher and 2 aides. We're adding a district-wide behavioral specialist, adding a half of an E&L teacher, a 0.2 tech teacher at the high school, some social workers, and then 0.3 increase of a speech teacher at the elementary level. So this is kind of, again, just a snapshot of where we are. Again, our budgeted revenues, inclusive of the $53,321,588 tax levy, gets us to a budgeted revenue of $96,886,588, which is an 8.4% increase from the current year. And then same on the expenditure side, $96,886,588. 8.4% increase there as well, which translates into a balanced budget. So this is just kind of just an exercise in routine here, but this is what we've done traditionally. This looks a little differently this year, in part because we are proposing a tax neutral budget. But this basically shows for the town of Amherst and the town of Tonawanda, your current tax bills as we sit for 22-23. And then because we remain tax neutral, meaning our tax levy, the amount of dollars that we raise from taxes remains the same. Everybody's tax bill will remain the same for the 23-24 school year. And then this just gives you kind of a snapshot of what will look like on May the 16th. There are 2 propositions on the budget, or on the ballot rather. The first is the proposition number 1, which is the overall approval of the budget. Again, $96,886,588. It's an 8.4% increase, and it translates to a tax neutral budget. And then the second proposition on the budget is that we are electing 1 Board of Education member to a 5-year term that expires on June 30th, 2028. The term of Scott Johnson expires on June 30th of 2023. And yesterday was the deadline. We have 3 candidates for the 1 seat, Scott Johnson, Brandon Beckinghausen, and Dawn L. Scott Iverson are the 3 candidates. They will be on the ballot when we vote here in this room on Tuesday, May 16th from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. And with that, I will open it up to any questions as far as anybody goes.
I just wanted to mention one of the proposed positions. We're changing our public relations strategy around and moving away from BOCES and looking to add a person here in the district full time.
That's correct. Yes, that was mentioned in other meetings. I neglected to
So
include
anything the
that.
governor does with her budget, we're still okay unless she does something drastic.
Such as?
Well, I don't know. Her budget hasn't passed yet.
Her budget is not passed yet. I think, again, based upon everything that I've read, Dr. Genestri has heard from his superintendent's group. I've heard from the business officials that state aid is going to stay pretty much right where it is. It won't move, which is good news for us. Again, the only thing that might have an impact is one, the capital outlay projects. The capital outlay projects are at $100,000. There's movement to bring them to $250,000. we might have to pivot a little bit there. I'm trying to think what else is kind of still hanging out in limbo.
Where that 450, whatever that was, that.
Oh, that's correct. So that's the other thing. So including and part of the increase in foundation aid, thank you. There's about $412,000 that is earmarked for high impact tutoring. There's been no guidance as far as how that will look, what it will look like, how we would use it, when we're eligible to use it, those kinds of things. But I hear in my circles, and Dr. Genestri the same, that's not going to make it through, and that it should just be added back to straight foundation aid to use as we like. And then the last piece is the retirement cap incentive, where somebody could retire and then come back and collect not only their pension for the following year, but to serve in a position, teaching position, an administrative position for the next year for 1 year. So those are the things. Go ahead, Scott. I'm sorry.
I know there's proposition that the legislature support by the governors about making the free healthy lunches for breakfast and just a statewide issue. If that does happen, will it affect anything within our budget?
No, school lunch is a standalone. So we are community eligible right now, which means everybody does eat for free. I don't know what it would look like in terms of a reimbursement rate, but it does not have any impact on our general fund budget because it's a standalone school lunch.
The only other thing I heard is there might be an increase in UPK aid, but that's still up in the air. So we'll monitor that one quick.
Mm-hmm. And we're in the mix for a competitive grant for you.
Yes.
Toya's going to be up next talking about that. Go ahead, Scott.
The other piece I have, it's how much, I want to see if I'm following this right. I mean, we're showing here, the proposal is a zero tax increase for both Amherst and Town of Wanda based on the fact we're not increasing the levy. But it's possible that could change either up or down based on
assessments.
Based on whether the assessments have gone up or down, based on whether either one of them goes up to a full equalization rate or the equalization rate's dropping.
Correct.
Several variables in there that
if
could change
equalizations
slightly.
drop, correct. Again, I wouldn't expect a large increase nor a large decrease. I would expect a similar tax bill to what they've received this year.
Might be, I mean, I know you can't pick an exact dollar.
Yeah.
I mean, it might be just a handful of dollars one way or the other.
Correct.
Okay.
Anybody else? Questions? Thanks for all the hard work in your department.
No, I appreciate it. It's been an interesting year, obviously, kind of with all the new foundation aid. And again, as I mentioned at our last meeting, we're really proud of the fact that we're able to do a tax neutral budget. And that's testament to all of you. If there was ever a time to do it, in an economy that's at 8% inflation, and with the influx of not only federal funds, but the increase in state funding as well, this was the year to do it. So, again, we've been very fortunate in that we've had support of our community since 1977, and we hope that that continues here in about a month. So we look forward to it. Thanks, everybody.
I just wanted to thank Mr. Feldman and his team too. It's budget season it's very busy, to say the least. And just a great job by everybody in the department over there. So really appreciate the efforts and looking forward to the vote in May. So thanks. And also we wanted to almost, can we say, we want to invite almost Dr.
Don't
Wilson up here.
Dr. Genestri.
To talk about where we are with UPK. She's got some exciting updates for the board. And we know the board asked, I think Mr. Leibel asked about some assessments and how things are going. And we wanted to make sure the board was updated on where we are in this year of full day. So.
Yes, and we do have some exciting news. Well, go back.
Oh, sorry.
I want to make sure I point out the Sweet Home Way. The Sweet Home UPK Way builds a foundation for children in partnership with families to grow through exploration, creativity, play, and play in a nurturing, caring, flexible, and child-based environment that educates and enriches the whole child for lifelong learning. And I want us to make sure we stay focused on that's our mission when we look at UPK. All right. So we start off with a look at UPK for 3 years. And as you know, this year we took the leap to expand to full day UPK, which was a phenomenal leap. You see that the numbers have grown significantly. And you'll see the impact of our students just in a short period of time of going from a half-day private program from an organization that we use at Four Seasons, St. Leo's, to majority of our students sitting right in our schools for full days. So we've gone up to 165. This includes all students from the year. When you talk about UPK numbers, it's students who are with us at any point of the year, they all get counted because it is all important exposure. So this is what we look like right now going into next year. I think we're off to a phenomenal start. We have, you see the 4 schools there. And right now, currently fully registered and ready to go and ready to come out to orientations, we have 166 students. Now, remember Maple Mere, those students, that 38 students right now, they sit over at St. Leo's, but the majority of the students over at St. Leo's are Maple Mere. There's a couple from Willow Ridge, but for the most part, Maple Mere. And you see that we have the potential to go up to 192 when we look at the total number across our classrooms. We will be up to 11 classrooms with an expansion at Glendale, Heritage, and Willow Ridge. And we still have space to grow. So right now, even if we take the potentials that we have on our list now, you see those 2 zeros at Maple Mere and Willow Ridge. I want to point out that they're not necessarily zeros. They're just lists that are still in the works. Okay. And this is April. We still have all of the rest of the school year and the summer to get those families connected and registered in our schools. Next slide. Now for the really fun part. How are we assessing progress with our UPK program? So we have 3 main assessments that we use, and you're going to get to see how our students compare from the start of the year all the way through and compare to what we look like with half day versus full day. So the 3 main ones, we have early childhood screening with Brigance. We have, it's the ASQE2, which is the age and stages questionnaire. It's a social emotional screener. And then we have the Circle Engage program that assesses our students' performance. Next slide. So here with Brigance, the purpose here is to begin to understand a child's development at age 4 and assess their readiness and their mastery levels for development as well as academic skills. And identify children who may need further monitoring, future assessments, possible early intervention. This is key to supporting our students early on. Next slide. This assessment digs into, you see the list of skills there, communicating personal information, identifying colors by name, naming objects, printed forms of uppercase letters, being able to draw forms, walking, hopping, so much fun, naming, language development, naming body parts, and one two-step directions. And that should be recognizing and naming numerical quantities, as well as language development and verbal fluency and articulation. So as we dig into the screening for the ASQE, the social emotional screener, we want to point out that our students, this is a set of questionnaires about behavior and social emotional development for our young children. Parents actually complete this questionnaire. This one is a new one for us. We're using it at the end of this year, going into next year. So parents actually complete this questionnaire to give us some reliable feedback about any social emotional difficulties. The tool screens in 7 key behavioral areas. You see there: self-regulation, compliance, communication, affect, autonomy, adaptive behaviors, and interacting with people. All those really important social emotional skills. And then we used it to make a schedule to support that student and celebrate milestones to make sure that we're continuously monitoring and growing. And then identify strengths and areas of support. So you see from our feedback here, this is the ASQ2. And you see of the 138 families that completed the online questionnaire for our upcoming UPK 3 and 4, because you can register as a 3-year-old as long as you're 4 by December 1st. And 93% of the children demonstrated no concern. But it also shows us that we have 5% that we need to be monitoring and another 2 that require some serious follow-up. So this is all before they even start with us. We can use this to develop plans and support our students as they enter. And you see there's 2 different assessments there. There's age 3 and age 4. The questionnaire is different for age 4. 4-year-olds have been exposed to more.
So if parents are filling this out online, we have accommodations for our ELL.
Yes, we do. Yes. We actually were supporting it through our ELL staff. Our new family liaison was engaged and was involved in all of the registration process. Yes. Next slide. The Circle Progress Monitoring System. So Circle, this system is a user-friendly, technology-driven tool that enables teachers to quickly assess a child's progress in a particular skill area. And it gives us reliable data that we can use to prompt lesson plans and support students and target behaviors and needs. Next. And as you see there, that's an example, but we're going to dig into our data. So the Circle is given in 3 waves. The first wave is in October-ish, November. And then the next wave is in February, and then the last wave is in June. So we've had 2 waves that we've given already for this year. And as you can see, from wave 1 to wave 2, so for about a month or so, a couple of months into school, the growth that has happened in rapid letter naming of our students who are with us for full days, you see that we've had a 9% increase just in the first 2 waves, and we still have the 3rd wave to go. We have rapid vocabulary growth there, another 6.5 or 6, almost 7% increase in performance. Next slide. Here we have a look at math from wave 1 to wave 2. So you see the different things that are assessed there, a number of things, counting, shape naming, and so on. Overall, from 18% of our students meeting the benchmark of being on track to 21.2%. And that's just from wave 1 to wave 2. Remember, we still have another wave to go. Now let's compare how our half-day preschool students have done in the past compared to full day. So what you have here is the half-day results from 1920. That's prior to the pandemic. Remember, whenever we're looking at data, anytime we looked at it this year, we've always looked at what did we look like going into the pandemic, and now we're coming out, because it's a lot more reliable to compare that way. And so what you see here, you have on track for math in the first slide. And as you can see, there's significant gains over the students who have gone from the half day to the full day. And off the charts for the vocabulary half day to full day, 100%, 100% of our students. And this is just the second wave. 100% of our students meeting the benchmark for being on track in vocabulary. So, and as you can see, those were significant gains over the half-day program. So imagine how kindergarten is going to be so different. We're going to look at those numbers next year. It was asked earlier at a board meeting, how do we monitor? So here's an example of the progress report. This is done 3 times a year, each trimester, and it's aligned to the New York State pre-kindergarten learning standards. There are 5 domains, and as you can see, the domains are called out there. And you can see the social emotional with domain 3, approaches to learning, motor skills, communication, cognition of knowledge of the world in mathematics. And so you see a lot of alignment of our assessments as to what we use all year long compared to the progress report that parents get 3 times a year. And as I wrap up, this was a brief presentation, but I thought it was amazing information to share. I'd like to leave you with one of my favorite quotes. It is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. Frederick Douglass. And that's what we're doing here. And I'll take questions.
Just want to say, I know from a certain pre-K teacher that she was blown away by her own assessments.
Yes.
Like she has never had assessments like this. So
Yes, the progress is amazing.
exciting stuff going on.
This really surprises me because when we talked about bringing this program to full day, we went through countless articles, journals that said this is the way to go. So it's nice to have data to back up what we already knew.
And just imagine how these students will grow and can, like just the first week of school, visiting their classes to now and how independent they are when you go off and visit. So yes, I'm thinking about them going off to kindergarten and
In college.
yes, next step college.
I had a question. So the ASQ, the social emotional screening or survey tool that goes to parents, that's part of the screening process?
Yes.
And do you do like follow-up ones once they're in pre-K?
Yes, so it's something that we continue to monitor. And so we're looking for that number to continue to get smaller. And it's really just a way for us, it's us a screener, for us to identify where we might have small things that we may not have seen come up that the parents see at home. Who best to tell us but the parents?
I was wondering about I thought catching them at screening is really good because I was a little worried about like if we would end up seeing some bias in like who's returning the surveys. Then I realized it was during screening. So I was like, haha,
We got
we
pretty
get them
much-
all. And then my last question was going back to the slots. The last column is the slots available if children attend their neighborhood schools. And it doesn't quite work out for every kid to fit in the neighborhood school. So what happens in that case?
So right now, what we're doing right now is what happens. So St. Leo's is where we have some additional seats.
Okay.
And so right now, it is mostly Maplemere students that you will find over at St. Leo's, but there are a handful of students from Willow Ridge over there. So we're looking at like 3 Glendale students and 4 Heritage Heights who could possibly go to St. Leo's. Our goal is first to make sure that they're their neighborhood school first, but
Thank you.
Anyone else?
all right.
For all the hard
Thank you.
work.
Yeah, and I just want to say, you think about these numbers that of growth in just, 3/4 of a year that we've had. But the other exciting thing is that we're servicing more UPK kids than ever before. And that's why I pulled up this chart here that, last year we're at 131 half-day students. And now we're at 165 full-day students. So the growth that they're making in the year, combine that with the fact that we're servicing more students than ever, is just going to have an incredible impact on the district. And anybody listening at home, if you know a 4-year-old who hasn't registered yet, we have slots available. And we welcome everybody. And I just want to thank the board because we kept promoting the goal of opening this up and not having a wait list this year. And I think we're going to reach that goal and make sure that everybody who wants a UPK slot has a UPK slot.
Yes. Our goal, 100%.
100%. Awesome. Cool. And I just have a couple of quick updates. We had a meeting of our building use committee tonight. We're moving into the next phase of improving student experiences in all of our buildings. And so we did a quick study of enrollment projections. We focused a lot of our conversation on class sizes tonight. And then it turned into a conversation on improving experiences. We're going to schedule our next meeting. I'm going to schedule it tomorrow not to have the meeting tomorrow, but we're going to get everybody together within the next week or so. And Mrs. Battaglia assigned everybody a homework assignment today after that to talk about bringing ideas to the table about improving experiences with the buildings that we have, knowing that there are limitations inside our buildings. So the committee is going to continue a lot of hard work, a lot of hard thinking around how we can utilize each and every space in our buildings to improve the student experience. And we hope to have a presentation for the board possibly in June about some ideas we have moving forward, knowing that we have short-term ideas that we need to bring to the board, but also knowing that there are long-term implications as well, and that our next building project is already in its planning stages, and it's going to focus hard on the elementary buildings. May and June are always busy times for the district, but just a kind of a reminder that we have some exciting presentations coming up for the board in May and June, including two major ones, one on DEI and one on the presentation of our strategic plan to the board. So we're really excited about those. We'll also be bringing to you the calendar, code of conduct for your review, more on building use committee, attendance and wellness, professional development, and of course, highlighted by our tenure and retirement reception that we will do in June as well. And that's what we have tonight.
Short, sweet. Anyone have any questions? All right, thank you, Dr. Genestri. That takes us to our upcoming events. I think the concert season has begun. About those events. Wow. All right, next, I need a motion for consent agenda for A, B, C, D. Where does this go? All the way to J, consent agenda A through J.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, so let's go through them one at a time. First is our budget adoption. Any more questions on that? I think we could have given the presentation. We've seen it so many times, I think, Mr. Feldman.
I'll
No one
take you
does
up
it
on
like
that
Take
offer.
No one does it like Mr.
No,
Feldman.
nobody does it. It's riveting. Any
There's a song that
questions?
says that nobody does it better.
All right, next is our special education. I did get through all 318 pages of that. I do have a couple questions for Dr. Genestri, but
Okay.
that can be done in private.
Okay.
C is our monthly financial reports. Stop me. If you have questions. D is our bids for commercial printing school calendar, our commercial printing your schools. I just had a question, Mr. Feldman. When do these have to be in by? Like,
What do you mean?
like to get our calendar on time?
Oh, so the calendar process, the calendar will be presented, I believe, next month. So we'll start, actually, we started to build a digital calendar today to start to kind of collect information from all the various stakeholders. And then generally, I like to wrap up that piece of it, the calendar piece of it, by the time everybody goes home for the summer. And then I spend a couple of weeks in July getting the handbook portion ready. Then we hand it off to the printer the middle of July. And go back a couple times with design things, and then it's generally out in the mail by the middle of August.
You send notices out to the PTAs to get dates to you?
Yep.
Is that how you?
Yep, correct.
Thank you. D is all our bids, again, commercial printing, arts and crafts, and athletic uniforms. E is our annual district vote, chief election inspector, as well as inspectors of elections. F is our Erie One BOCES, our BOCES budget, as well as our nominees. We have 2 nominees, board members. G is our revised policy second reading. H is our revised policy first reading. I is our athletic team merger that we kind of touched on last week. And J is our budget transfer. Any questions? Right, so I'll call for a vote for that consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And Josh, I couldn't hear you, Josh.
Aye.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you. That takes us to informational items. Josh, why don't we start with you?
I don't have anything, Marianne. Thank you, though.
Hey, but you'll be back to us soon.
Another
right?
few weeks.
All right, excellent. Peter,
I didn't attend, but I bought chicken dinners from the middle school chicken dinner. last night. And a couple of athletic events. That's about it. Not much this past week.
okay, thank you. Scott,
I attended the high school PTSA meeting last week. They actually had a couple guest speakers. Lisa LeBrake came in first and talking about the chef program, again, explaining the whole thing and saying they're looking for some volunteers for some of the committees. And then after that, and I'm sorry, I'm looking for the name, Heidi LaFave came in to talk with them about the Northwest, the community center up here, Northwest Amherst Community Center, and the different things and asking for some more feedback if there was other things they thought they might like to see. Plus, she explained a lot of the stuff that's already on the way. I know the board had asked when the Stars Breakfast is going to be. It will be the morning of the budget vote on 5/16. And they were also getting ready to distribute and read their scholarship essays as soon as Don finished doing the yeoman's work I know he had to do to get them there. And that's pretty much it for that one. And yesterday was the DEI committee, which Dr. Genestri just addressed to some extent. That we spent a good amount of time discussing the various subcommittees that we had a report for each one. And I'm sorry to say I had to leave early, so I didn't catch the ending. I don't know if there was anything else that major that jumped out that I missed.
I've got you covered. We
Thank
had a
you.
huge celebration
Looking the
at
wrong
the
way.
end that you missed. We had we did a toast and everything. I'll talk all about it.
That's it for me.
thank you. Haley.
I can talk all about it right now.
Got it.
But first, I was at the Creekwood Family Fest. I pulled up the flyer. It's a really nice flyer. I didn't actually see it. It was such a blast. It was such
Gorgeous
a nice
day.
afternoon and a really underappreciated park that I bring my dog to all the time. And there were easily over 100 people there at 1:10. So it was really well attended. There were smiles on everyone's faces. The weather was beautiful. It was a blast. And so really well done to the organizers, the Amherst Police Department, the Northwest Community Center, Sweet Home. There was a lot of community partners there, the senior center. I got some really cool Amherst birding stickers because I'm a big birder. I don't know if anyone knows that. So that was a blast. And then hopped over to the Heritage Heights meat raffle later that night. Also a blast, lots of fun. We won pizza logs and Fiesta sausage. And we actually had a family party the next night to cook up all the good stuff we had. So it was a great weekend over at the McDonald household. But that was really wonderful. I think they're still tallying up their final total. But it was a really joyful event and it was good to be there with the Heritage family. And then I was at the DEI committee meeting yesterday, and we rounded out our meeting with a celebration of what we've accomplished so far. We went through and we read the feedback from our superintendent days that were different trainings for our whole the staff across all of our schools. Enormously positive, overwhelmingly positive. And we also talked about what it is that we would like to do in the future and how we envision the overarching committee kind of functioning in the future. We discussed a lot of really cool ideas for how we can continue to move forward. And we had a toast with champagne glasses filled with M&Ms. That was really nice, just to kind of focus on some of the positives. We've got a lot of work left to do, a lot of big stuff that's going to be coming down the line. But it was a really nice meeting. Yeah, so I'm excited. We're going to be presenting in June to the board, and I'm really excited for guys to hear all about it. So
And on that note, when is the cutoff for presentations for our convention in October? Because I know that was something.
We presented, or we submitted 3 proposals. It was probably two weeks ago. March 27th, maybe. And we submitted a proposal on electric buses, DEI, and in the strategic planning process. And it's gonna take a little while to hear.
Bit to hear back.
But we have 3 proposals.
Beautiful.
Yeah, they're all good.
Good.
you should clarify, they were like little plastic punch glasses. We weren't bringing out the good china.
Thank you, Kaylee. Brian.
Yeah, I attended the Willow Ridge PTO meeting on Thursday. They are working on their community garden, which was started last year, but so this is nice to see that come into development. I think the big relevant piece for discussion here, or at least for this group to be aware of, is again, there was mention and discussion about hosting or having a district-wide multicultural night. I know I mentioned that at another meeting that was brought up again, and I recommended that the president reach out to the district office to kind of talk about how that may be coordinated. One of the points that was brought up that I think was interesting is that a lot of the schools have multicultural night around the same time. And as a result, there's some overlap vendors. And, so one of the benefits is just saving on some spending, because, instead of having the same vendor whether it's a presenter or because, they have different presenters beyond just, supplies and things like that they would need. So, you'd have this person or organization maybe presenting once versus, 4 or 5 times. So there'd be some cost savings. And beyond that, obviously, there's some value of bringing the entire community together. So, I did recommend reaching out to the district office, to the president, and I also volunteered to, be involved in that process if it moves forward. The other piece, I attended the Teaching and Learning Committee, which was the day before on Wednesday, the 12th. I've talked a little bit about that. I did want to mention, just again, for informational purposes, our group has really focused on 3 buckets. One is future focus, the theme. Another is teaching and learning. And the last bucket was whole child. And those are really ways of framing the discussion in those points in time. And through the development of what ultimately will be a strategic plan that will be presented to the board. And to the district. So last meeting, we were focusing on the whole child, and it was interesting. An area that was brought up was I think the experience of for many of the students for fun, and the idea of Friday night lights, and not necessarily meaning football, but something for the students to do more regularly. A place to go, right? And things have changed. And from, for instance, when I was growing up, malls, they don't even exist. Kids don't go to malls anymore to hang out. So kind of what are the things for them to do? And I think there'll be some exciting and good things coming out of that committee. But that's it on my end.
Thank you. Amy.
I also attended the Creekwoods Family Fest. I got there late, close to probably 2:30. We stayed about a half hour, 45 minutes, but it was still very well attended. It was really a great event. Everybody was just super happy to be there. I have to admit, I'd never been over to that little park, but it's
Appreciated.
yeah, very underappreciated, but it's a
hidden in the
cute little
park.
park, and people had a great time. Other than that, I've also attended a handful of sporting events. Our teams are off to great starts. I did have a parent ask me about the concession stand being open more often. I didn't really know how to respond. I know in the past, it seems to be when people want to run it, they open it up, but I don't really know, is there a process?
Outside group that does it, or one of the groups that does it, but I haven't heard if they're gonna open it. I was there Saturday. I thought it would
Yeah.
have, that would have been a good time to, if, for some group to make some money out of there, only because there were a lot of events going on Saturday
Is it-
and the weather was amazing.
Is it something that like, you know, the baseball team can run when the lacrosse team has a game, or is it something like that? Like they just have to go to
Definitely be
Chris?
open to that. Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's generally how
Approaches.
it's happened.
Okay, all right. And
So if
I,
any group wants to approach us about, we're all ears on that.
okay,
Yep.
sounds good. The only other thing I have is, I was able to meet from a distance our new coyotes that we have over on the field. They're stuffed, just in case anybody's
Oh my
worried. But they help keep the geese away. And I said to,
They should have been panther.
So I asked Chris about it and he says they're working. So far, so good.
I suggested him buying a few more and
To
putting
put
them
in
out
front,
here. So the sidewalk is not so bad.
My yard.
If you put them out in front of Sweet Home, you do run the risk of people driving on Sweet Home calling.
Yeah.
Well, there was,
About the
there was a lot
animals.
of conversation on Saturday about it amongst parents because, so I was in the bleachers watching flag football and lacrosse. Well, there was a baseball game going on
Yep.
behind us. So there were a handful of us that kept like going up to see how the baseball game was going. And then there was conversation, you would hear people just kind of like start chattering and I'm like, and I'd look at Chris and you'd be like, watch them point. And then all of a sudden they'd be like, what is that? They don't move, but you could tell it looks like an animal and it was a topic of conversation, but it works.
Yeah.
He said
Wow.
it's been very helpful on that field. So
Nice.
other than that, that's all I got.
Just a silly question. How much is a coyote?
I didn't even know we had coyotes.
Yeah.
We should go meet them. I think we should name them.
Didn't know we were putting them out there.
Yes,
They're
we
inside.
should have made an announcement because some people thought they were real
Yes.
and a health hazard to,
Oh, please.
Well,
it's a funny story.
there was the conversation, like,
Yeah.
you know, what are they and why are they out there? And I finally said to Chris, I'm like, what? I said, they're not moving, but what? And he said, they're stuffed coyotes. They help with the geese. But they're on the inside of the track, on the field, on the
like
inside of the
it.
track, and they
That's
work.
cute.
I like
They were.
it.
So yeah, it was quite interesting. But like I said, they're fake, they're stuffed, they are not real.
Are they anchored down?
I haven't seen them, so I don't know.
They are.
I would think so because
Okay.
We had to do this with a fake stork or like a fake heron for the pond in my parents' backyard to keep them from eating the fish. But you have to move it around every now and then because they learn that it's not.
that's why the swans are in ponds are always not anchored, they float.
Mhm.
And owls are another thing that people put in their yards to keep things away.
Or something new. Thank you, Amy.
Glad I could help.
I worked Saturday, so I was not able to attend, but I know Heidi put an awful lot of work into that festival. And we had a couple students from over at UB. It was just a very family filled and it was a great orientation for people who weren't familiar with that community center. So kudos to her. I did mention last week that Scott and I attended the health and safety, but I failed to mention a few things we talked about. Dave Agwell mentioned that our last lockdown drill happened last week at all 7 buildings. So that's checked off our list. And they're still working on our evac drills. They're still to come up. And our mass notification at the middle school was done over break. It's going to go semi-live soon. Glendale and Maplemere will be taken care of over the summer. We reviewed the gaggle incidents, and that's really a great tool that we've come with to really watch our kids and what's coming up on the computer. So capital project was reviewed, the heritage roof, the service center, phase 2 started and all the buildings will be touched. And then we mentioned our code of conduct. And I know we're all joking about it, but I do want to say congratulations from the board to Dr. Genestri. He finished his doctorate in,
Education, administration and policy.
all right. Congratulations, you make
Thank
us
you.
proud.
Thank you. Thank
Yay.
Oh,
I
man.
want a picture. We want pictures. All right, and thank you, everyone. That takes us to our next open session. Any takers? Good. That takes us to personnel. Could I have a motion for consent agenda, personnel, teaching and administrative, as well as service?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any comments, concerns? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Lastly, I need a motion to adjourn. Do
So moved.
I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And Josh, we couldn't hear you.
Aye.
Aye, thank you. All right, and